We've been through thus far 8 principles, beginning with the Incarnation, when Jesus identifies with us and teaches us that we too must identify with people and serve them. We've seen a principle of selection, how He looked for those that really wanted to learn, just as we must look for those that God brings into our life in answer to prayer, beginning where we live every day. We've seen the principle of association, the glue that holds us together, whether with just another person or with a larger congregation of the church. We've seen the principle of consecration, as we obey His teaching, ever growing and learning, a motivation of love that constrains us in the ministry. We've seen the principle of demonstration, how we actually become a model of what we're trying to teach. Just as Paul said, "You follow me as I follow the Lord." The focus is on Jesus. We've seen the principle of delegation. As God has gifted us, we get involved where we are able to help. We've observed the principle of supervision. As we continually learn more, we are constantly being changed, and we're being taught, to whom much is given, much is required. And we've seen the principle of multiplication, how as this lifestyle is reproduced, someday the world will hear the gospel. But I've saved for the last the principle of impartation. In the book I put it at the center because I didn't want to wait to the end before we come to the power, because this is what makes it all possible. I saved it here in this session at the last for the sake of emphasis. For everything that I've said thus far would be useless unless we realized only God can accomplish His own mission. And He does this by the Spirit. We know God as the Father in His administration. We know Him as the Son in revelation, but we know Him as the Spirit in operation. And all through the Old Testament, we see Him at work accomplishing His redemptive purpose. He plants the seed of the Father in the womb of the Virgin, so that Mary conceives by the Spirit and introduces God's Son into our human history. And by that Spirit, Jesus is led during His incarnate life. By that Spirit, He does mighty works. And as He comes to the end, He tells the disciples, "Everyone that believes on me will do my work, even greater works, because I'm going back to the Father, and I'm going to ask Him to send another counselor, even the Spirit of truth." Now, the world doesn't know Him, but you know Him. He's already been with you. I have been with you. You have been grafted into my life by the Spirit. And the Spirit is going to now lead you just as I have been leading you. He's going to take the things of mine and make them known to you. He will glorify me. So you can see why He told those disciples to tarry, to go back to this upper room after He had ascended into heaven and wait for the promise of the Father. The promise indeed of the Great Commission, when Jesus said, "I will be with you always, even to the end of the age." That's how you can make disciples. Only by the Spirit of Christ can you make disciples of Christ. And the danger is that you would try to do it in your own energy, in your own wisdom. And what a great temptation that is. Only as we come and completely give ourselves to Christ are we going to be an instrument that He can use. And so those disciples went back to the upper room, and there on the day of Pentecost, the first day of the first fruits of the harvest being gathered, the Holy Spirit came in that upper room, and they were filled with the presence of Christ. The power was not in the wind or the fire or the tongues. The power was in the living presence of Jesus Christ, which now filled them and led them forth into that mighty ministry recorded in the book of Acts. But it's the Spirit that effects in us the incarnation, making us a servant. It's the Spirit that enables us to recognize those that He's bringing into our life in selection. It's the Spirit that creates the fellowship, the association that we come to call the church. It's the Spirit that breathes love into our heart that makes us want to obey. It's the Spirit that enables us to become a model or an example for others to follow. It's the Spirit that delegates, that sends us forth. It's the Spirit that supervises, that encourages, that corrects, that even helps us pray. It's the Spirit that brings forth the harvest, so that from beginning to end we are a witness to what God is doing, as through His Spirit He fulfills the Great Commission. It's not something we wait for someday in heaven. It's a promise that we realize now. It's the only way we can truly make disciples of Christ, is to let the Spirit of Christ have His way in us and to live in the fulfillment every day, the lifestyle of the great